Evening, everyone. Let's get ready to get started. Can you hear me? Thumbs up. There is. All right, thumbs up. And this sharing is not transitioning. Bear with me. While I set this up. Welcome, Peace and Genang. Please bear with me while we get set up here. I think I have to do this first. It might be easier to share the whole screen. Let's try this. Is that better? Yes. All right, we are going to begin. Yes. Pause the sharing for a minute. Make sure I can turn my camera on. So I'm being seen. Are the chats enabled? If we can chat, please let me know where you're connecting from. Just so I have an idea of your location as well. So could you please, if you don't mind, all right. I'm going to share my screen again and we can get started. All right, we'll start with the first presentation. So today is day 2 for the Scrum Master course. I want to start by introducing myself. I think I need to adjust my camera a little bit. Go back. Okay, so this webinar is for certified Scrum Masters. If you're certified, we will learn a little bit about the Agile Values and Scrum, go over a good review of the material so you can be engaged to get a job. If you are not certified, then you are also welcome, and this will motivate you to get your certification. those who are working or entrepreneurs and business owners will also find the material very useful, because in my opinion, Scrum should be used by every and anyone in any circumstance. If you're an IT professional or manager or senior person in your organization, most organizations are transitioning to Scrum. So in the next 5 to 10 years, many companies, particularly the larger organizations, will be employing some form of Agile, if not Scrum. And I am not keen on entertaining the presence or collaboration of people who are lazy, not fully committed, or unsure about what they want. I love to work with people who are honest, true, and in this for the right reason. Money is good, but if it's your only motivation, there's a great chance that you may not ride the wave of challenges that comes with transitioning. We are going to go through a similar agenda as we did yesterday. I'll talk a little bit about who I am. And then lesson 1 and 2, which we covered yesterday, I'm going to do a very quick review, just so that we can really refresh ourselves for lesson 3, which we will spend a lot of time on: the product owner, the developer, and the Scrum Master roles, particularly with application in mind. How do you, as a Scrum Master, serve your team? And then we'll talk about the certification process, some resume and job search tips, and how to go about getting hands-on experience in a way that's similar to how I did when I started out. That said, I want to share a little bit about myself. I was born in Cameroon in West Africa. I moved to the US way back in 1995. I studied electrical engineering, finished my master's degree, and I decided to join the Army. I joined the US Army as a signal officer, and I spent 7 years in the Army. Not to retire, my goal was to grow as a leader, grow in technology, because the military uses a lot of high tech, get exposed to cutting edge technology, which I did, but then transition out of the military into entrepreneurship, where I learned the hard way what not to do to develop software, what not to do to be a founder. So for 7 years, from 2010 till about 2017, I learned the hard way. I raised and spent over $400,000 making mistakes on 2-3 major iterations of my application. And then I found Scrum along the way in 2015, and that's really where my journey with Scrum started. It helped me launch my app, and eventually I transitioned to the workforce. And from 2020 till now, I have all the certifications you see on the bottom. I plan on having maybe double or triple that amount over the next 3-4 years. And it is the mindset of anyone who wants to do well in this industry. Not only does it help you get to higher levels and command a higher salary, it also increases your ability to serve the team, the project, the program, or organization that you work with. Because if you are a person who uses tools, and the only tool you have is a hammer, then you are going to treat everything you see like a nail. But if you have other tools, then you get to realize that, okay, situation calls for maybe using a saw or maybe using something else. So these certifications are good, not only to increase your pay and your advancing in your career, but also to help you do well in the role. I'm founder of a company called QSlot, and we are launching soon. I will talk more about the QSlot application and how we work with Scrum Masters to advance this project. My co-workers have said some good things about me, and they continue to say good things. These are some of the things that my previous co-workers have said. You may take a minute and read through yourself. I enjoy being a Scrum Master. I enjoy seeing teams thrive. I enjoy unblocking difficult situations. And it is a pleasure. If you are in Scrum for the reason of money only, it will not work. And many people get fired because they are in Scrum in this field for the wrong reason. This is another short message that I received from a manager, another manager, commending my attributes with team engagement. Water coolers are another term for icebreaker activities. In this particular scenario, the company was not, in fact, they had tried to have these icebreaker events, but they had failed previously. So when I came in, I decided I'm going to engage the team and I'm going to come up with creative ways to serve the team. And I came up with these icebreakers. They were fun, they were interesting, and they were a big hit. Not only was it a big hit for me, what I did was I documented all my activities. I came up with at least 30 which are customizable. And I handed that over to all the Scrum Masters on the program because other Scrum Masters were having a hard time engaging their teams. I said, hey, you guys have attended my events. You can do it the way I do it. You have observed it. Now here is a list of 20-something, 30 activities which you can tweak, you can change, you can customize to suit your needs and to suit your personality. And there was a big change in the organization. So not only did I help my team, I helped the organization. And if we have some time, maybe in the end, I will show you this document, will show you this template so that you can also think of creative ways that you can help not just your team, but also Scrum Masters. Because if you're going to get promoted, you're going to get promoted based on the impact you have, not just to your team, but to the organization as a whole. That said, we'll go through 3 lessons: Agile Values and Principles, Scrum Theory, Scrum Roles, the Product Owner, the Developer, and the Scrum Master role. These 3 lessons are all you need to pass the certification. In fact, you only need lesson 2 and lesson 3 and the Scrum Guide. Getting this certification is not difficult, but getting the experience and knowing what to do is extremely tricky. I won't say hard, I won't say difficult, I'll say tricky. It requires a lot of engagement and a lot of commitment. But we will go through lesson 1 and 2 quickly as a good review, and then we'll dive into lesson 3 and spend probably a good hour on lesson 3, so that by the time we leave here, we have a good understanding, a comfortable understanding of what this Scrum Master role is. But more importantly, you can relate to you as a Scrum Master, you being in that role. That is exactly what I want us to achieve. So we'll talk about the job market later, and we'll talk about resumes later. But for now, I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to switch gears to the PowerPoint presentations for lesson 1, lesson 2, and then lesson 3. So permit me to escape and pull up these lessons, and we shall quickly review lesson 1. So we'll go through lesson 1 real quick. And lesson 1, waterfall methodology and Agile introduction. Just a quick recap on what we went through yesterday. So when we dive into the product owner role, we can really be ready to transition into product owner, developer, and Scrum Master role. So we want to review the differences between waterfall and Agile. identify why we need the Agile methodology. Remember to think about our favorite Agile and Agile value and principle. When you interact with people in the field and even in industry, these things are important. We define a project, anything that can be accomplished with a beginning and an end. And then the key word here is the software development lifecycle. You'll be asked about it, you'll be expected to know it, but understand that the software development lifecycle is a process for developing software that consists of the how it should be done, the what it should be done, and the who does it. And there are phases of the software development lifecycle. Start with gathering requirements, designing based on those requirements, developing the software that has been designed, testing to ensure that it works, and then implementing the tested software, and once implemented, maintaining it over time post deployment. We talked about the waterfall model as the key model for developing software. There are other types: prototype, incremental, and spiral. I want to note that the Agile approach is an incremental type of software development lifecycle. So we have here, out of the common software development life cycles, you have waterfall and you have incremental. Those are the two that you want to pay attention to. And the waterfall approach is called waterfall because it is sequential and one step flows into the other step. The requirements flows into the design flows into development flows into testing flows to deployment, which is the same as implementation, and then maintenance. And maintenance happens when the software is live and you're updating, you're fixing, you're correcting, you're changing. That all of that goes into maintenance. So that is standard. And that has its roots back in the 1920s, 1930s. It's a very old approach. And because of that, it is very well documented, well studied, or understood, and easily referenced. It is straightforward. The waterfall technology, the waterfall methodology, because it is based on phases, it's easy to be clear on when to transition from one phase to the next. If it's a small project, it works really well. If you want to develop a website, for example, simple website, you know what you need, you can visualize it, you can execute it, check, and it can be done. It works really well. But when things get a little bit complex, a little bit more complex, the challenges and the limitations start arising. It becomes harder to test, it becomes harder to adapt, it becomes harder to mitigate the risks that arise as the project is evolving. And so it is not very good for complicated or complex projects. So as far as the need for another approach goes, the Agile methodology came to being. Remember, Agile is an incremental approach to developing software. It is a lot newer than the waterfall approach. The two words you need to know, waterfall and Agile, very, very important. Most of us have worked on waterfall projects if you've worked in project management already. Because it's iteration-based, each iteration consists of everything that is part of the waterfall model. Remember, if you're building a house, you're going to go through the waterfall model. You're going to conceive the project, you think about it, you may plan it, you document what you need, get an architect, get builders, etc., etc. What the Agile approach does is break everything down into smaller chunks. However, that cycle must still be implemented. You must still plan, you must still design, you must still develop, you must still test and you must still release, except that you're doing it over a shorter period of time. So it contains everything the waterfall model contains, just done in a much smaller scale and limitation. And this is another representation of the Agile methodology. Back in 2001, the Agile Manifesto was born. It's a document you can go to agilemanifesto.org and you can pull it up. The Agile values and the Agile principles were laid out during this meeting. And 17 people from different software development frameworks came together. All these frameworks are Agile frameworks, not just Scrum. Scrum was one of them. Some people mistake Scrum for Agile. They might say, oh, do you use Scrum? Do you use Agile? Scrum is just one type of Agile framework. Scrum does not mean Agile. Scrum is a subset of Agile. That is why 17 people came together to say, we develop software in a similar but not so exactly the same approach. Can we come up with a common ground, set of values and principles that will guide us? And that's what came to be called the Agile Manifesto. And it contains 4 values which you should know and identify with. Understand what they mean, and before you go for an interview, read up on them, write a note. This is what my favorite value is, my favorite principle is. Very, very important. That said, the first one is individual interactions over processes and tools. Everyone who is new to Scrum, new to Agile, should like this value. Individual interaction over processes and tools. Why? Because we are weak on tools. We are weak on processes. We are not very familiar with Jira. We are not familiar with the tools that the company uses. So you should put forward your ability to interact with others and sell the recruiter and the hiring managers on your ability to interact and your love for interaction. Very important. Working software over comprehensive documentation. I spent many years developing software, but I was very heavy on documentation. I went from developing an application over 7 years, founded in a document that was over 65 pages. And that application cost me a lot of money. Back in October, was it October last year or September? We started working on the QSlot software. I started with a 3-page document, a 3-page PowerPoint presentation. And based on that 3-page PowerPoint presentation, we started working bit by bit, releasing software steadily. By month 3, month 4, everyone had understood the vision. And now the team with a perfectly good understanding of the vision is able to execute. So I go from heavy on documentation, 65 pages, that cost me $400,000, to a 3-page PowerPoint presentation that over the past 6 months has not cost me up to $40,000. And yet I have an application that works. So the Agile way really works. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We want to collaborate. We want to engage. We want to please and serve the customer. So we don't want to focus on what the contract says. We want to focus on what the customer needs. In fact, we want to be responsive. You can't say you adapt without really responding. All right, so there are 12 principles. I won't go over all the 12 principles. I'll touch on the tricky ones. And we talked about satisfying the customer, welcoming change, delivering software frequently. We want to reduce the time that we check, the time we go through that life cycle of development. The shorter it is, the more you can actually check. And The Scrum Master has to motivate, right? So motivation is very, very important. Face-to-face is extremely important. However, we live in a remote world now. So as a Scrum Master, you're going to be asked questions. How do you help your team in a remote environment? How do you help your team develop software? So, and then working software is the primary measure of progress. Yes, we want to develop software. We want to do it fast. And if you're not developing software and you're not seeing the software work, you're not progressing. This is an important principle and it's a tricky one, sustainable development. Sustainable development is important because you want to be able to determine or understand the rate at which your team is working. You want your team to work at a constant rate that the team can manage, that the team will not suffer burnout or suffer lack of interest because the work is too much. So agility comes with managing the load of the work, the flow of the work. It's a very important concept. And we must pay attention to technical excellence and the design. The design of the application will emerge with time. The most confusing one, simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work that is not done. We want to maximize work that is not done. You maximize work that is not done by understanding more about it, even though you're not doing it. Understanding the resources needed, even though you're not started doing it. Understanding who could do it, even though you've not started doing it. The more you know about the work that is not being done, the more you can execute faster and more efficiently when you start working on it. And because of that, most agile frameworks we have pre-planning meetings, some we call it grooming sessions, refinement sessions, to talk about work that has to be done in the future, but is not yet being done, so that when that time comes to do the work, the team moves faster. A big word in the field of agility is the word emerge. To emerge means to discover, to be known as a result of exploration, as a result of checking and engaging. Just like when you're cooking, you may start cooking without knowing what you're really going to cook. You put some spices in the pot, you taste it out and say, well, maybe I'll add some garlic, I'll add some ginger. You might say, well, I'll put in some vegetables. Let me throw in some carrots. And that meal emerges as you're cooking. You may not have it the way you want it unless you start doing it. And sometimes just starting creates the best product. And the final, but not the least, is the concept of a retrospective. They don't call it retrospective here, but retrospective is a term particular to Scrum. It just says here, as regular interval, the team reflects. Remember, these are principles that guide 17 frameworks. So the words that I use here are generic. When you study each of these frameworks, you will identify words that are particular to those frameworks. And when we talk of Scrum, we will learn the language of Scrum. The Agile principles and values are generic to all. They are very, very advantageous. They are very beneficial to large companies and small organizations or teams. They increase the productivity, the morale, the satisfaction, the speed of execution, the quality of execution. All of these are huge benefits. And remember, I talked of 17 frameworks. Well, this picture only shows 7. So there are 10 others that are missing. The larger umbrella is called Agile, Agile as a framework. Scrum is just one type of Agile framework. Here's a video we watch, and we can conclude with understanding that to be Agile, you have to have the Agile mindset. And when you go for an interview, very important, when you engage that person, you have to think of ways in your life as an individual that demonstrate your mindset for agility. Even if you say, I sit my children down to plan for the week, And after the end of the week, I sit them down to talk about how the week went, and that can relate to the concept of the retrospective or the planning, whatever it is. Examine your life, think about ways that you are already agile. If you need to improve, you can come up with a plan and say, this is the plan I have come up with to make my life a more agile life, or make my life more scrumified. Then you can show that you are passionate about this field, because you're going to be asked, how passionate are you? You can't just say, oh, I'm passionate. You have to answer with references in your life that demonstrate or speak to the fact that you are passionate. How passionate are you? I have a list of 25 certificates I want to have. How many do you have? One. Well, so what? You have one, but you've already thought about 25 certifications you want to have. That's passion. So have that mindset and start thinking of ways that you can embody that mindset, even without 10 years experience, even without 5 years experience. If you can demonstrate that you have that mindset, you're one step in the door. So with that, we will conclude the summary of lesson 1, and we will go to lesson 2. It gets more interesting. All right, so lesson 2, we want to have a general understanding of the Scrum framework, understand the relationship between the Scrum events, the artifacts, the pillars. And then while we do all this, think about applying Scrum to your life. So we'll go over the Scrum framework. Remember that the Agile Manifesto came about in 2001. And if you look at that document, the slide I showed, Scrum was part of the 17 frameworks that came to being. However, this document called the Scrum Guide was not released till 2010. So it took the organization or the Scrum founders at least a decade, more than a decade, to come about developing the Scrum Guide. And the guide is a simple document, less than 15 pages, that tells you what Scrum is and how you can use Scrum with a team. It is simple, it is easy to understand, and it is purposely incomplete, meaning you have to add to the framework to make the framework work for your organization. You can't take away from it, you can only add to it. If you take away from it, you are not doing Scrum. That said, Scrum theory presents 3 pillars, 5 values, roles, events, and artifacts. And if you're planning to take the exam, you need to know these 3 pillars, 5 roles, 5 values, roles, events, and artifacts. Empiricism is a keyword always tested on the exam. And empiricism asserts that knowledge comes from experience, and making decisions is based on observation. So you must observe. You're an experimentalist. You conduct experiments and you get the information from what your experiments are telling you. You just don't take information for what it is. You have to observe. And as a Scrum Master, you must ask yourself, what is the information telling you? What is the team telling you? What is the project telling you? And you, based on that, you glean that knowledge or help the team glean the knowledge. Lean thinking is actually it's founded in principles of linear processing, particularly the Six Sigma. You may have heard of Lean Six Sigma. All of that is very popular with supply chain management because it's a very linear way of doing things. And when you linearize things, you can identify the time spent on every activity, the time spent on an activity and the time spent waiting for an activity. Those are the 2 important things when it comes to lean. I didn't talk about this yesterday, but I want to touch on it today. When it comes to lean, the two main important things that you think about when you consider a system, the time spent in that particular state and the time spent waiting for work in that particular state. That means if you are in the kitchen and you are washing dishes and someone is helping you put the dishes away, there are two important factors: the time you spend washing the dish and the time you spend waiting for dishes to be supplied to you. If you can reduce both times, guess what? You improve the system. That said, you transfer that same concept to developing software. The time the developer spends programming and the time the developer spends waiting for work to program. If you have that mindset, let's reduce both times, you improve your system. So that really is how software development can use the lean thinking. So as a Scrum Master, you must ask yourself, how much time are we spending on this? And how can we shorten that time? All right, on to the iterative and incremental approach. Scrum is iterative in that you go from one sprint to the next, and a sprint is a short duration of development, a short cycle. And it's incremental because it increases in value from every iteration to every iteration. As you present the work that has been done over time, that work increases incrementally. And the total work is a sum of all the previous increments that have been released. You need cross-functional teams, and a cross-functional team is a team that collectively has all the skills necessary to release the software, or if it's a non-software related project, to execute the project. That said, Scrum has 4 formal events and 1 informal event. The informal event is called the sprint. That sprint is an iteration. That sprint is the period of time that software development lifecycle must be executed. Remember, we said in the iterative form of Agile methodology, the software development lifecycle happens during a short period. That is called the sprint. It's an informal event because it's not really something that happens that you come to and say, we're here for the sprint. It just contains the other events. And the other events we shall talk about later. 3 empirical pillars, very testable. On the exam, you're going to hear questions like, or read questions like, which are the 3 pillars of Scrum? Inspection, adaptation, transparency, and efficiency. You have to select the top 3, and you know it's transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And all of those form the pillars of Scrum. Empiricism and lean at the foundation, and then you have transparency. You must be transparent as a team to reveal what's going on and what's not going on, what's happening and what's not happening. So everyone in the team can accommodate and adapt. We've had instances on the Q slot project where a team member is sick or not available, and they are open enough to say, this is what is going on. I need help here. And other people pick up the work. Then we must actually inspect the work and adapt based on our inspection. You inspect to know what's working, know what should not be, is not working, know what's needed, know what's not needed, and then you make adjustments. And that's how those 3 work together to form the lean house, if you may call it that. There are 5 values, and each of them are related to the other. Courage to do the right thing, courage to uphold the Scrum values, courage to stand by the Agile and principles and values. You have to have that courage, and then focus, of course, on the Scrum goals. You remember in an exam, particularly if you are thinking of the level 2 Scrum certificate, those of you who already have the level 1 certificate, in level 2, you see questions like the team is developing software and a manager approaches a developer to work on something else. Which value is needed to deal with that manager? Focus, because the sprint goal will be compromised if that developer works on something else. Level 1 certificate, the exams just ask directly. The question will be, name 3 out of 5 Scrum values: courage, focus, commitment, respect. Those are the 5. But they will ask you to name 3, and they may say courage, focus, timeliness, or order. They'll throw something else. You just pick and choose. When you're going for level 2 certificates, they try to make them scenario based, and they try to ensure that you can apply what you have learned. So for focus, for example, instead of just asking you what it is, they will throw a scenario like, okay, another team manager has come in with a need, and your best developer is the only one that can do it, and it requires them for 1 week. Which value is compromised? You know it's focus, because everyone focuses on the work to accomplish the sprint goal. So that's the difference between level 1 and level 2. It's not much, it's just application. Everything is still based on the Scrum Guide. I tell you guys, this thing is not difficult, but what you need is the hands-on experience, the coaching, and the confidence to do well. So the Scrum team will talk a lot more about the Scrum team today, because we want to dive into the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the developer. So I'm going to skip this part a little bit, and we will come back to that as we proceed. But we got introduced to the fact that there are 3 roles on the team: the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the developer. A tester is not in a role on the Scrum team. When you write the test, they will ask you, who is part of the Scrum team? Product owner, developers, Scrum Master, tester. In fact, they might even throw in a project manager, and they will ask you to choose 3. So you know what the answer is. Then we have events and artifacts. An event is something that the team comes together to do. An artifact is something that the team works on or uses to work. When you go shopping, you make a shopping list. That is an artifact that you use to go shopping. Similarly, Scrum has artifacts that they use and artifacts that they produce. When you go shopping, your artifact that you use is the shopping list, and the artifact that you produce or what you're committed to is the product that you shop for. And the events are sprint planning, daily Scrum, review, retrospective, and the sprint. How are we doing on time? Very good on time. So there'll be time for plenty of questions. So prepare your questions, write them down so we can go over them and have fun in the end. So we'll talk about each of these. The sprint. The sprint is the container event. Remember, it is an informal event. There are 5 events. The sprint is an informal event. You may be tricked on the exam. You may see a question that asks you, how many events does Scrum prescribe? The answer is 5. How many formal events does Scrum prescribe? The answer is 4. Total of 5 events. The sprint is an informal event. And then the planning, the daily Scrum, the review, and retrospective make 5 events. Very important, you may see it on your test. But during a sprint, all the events happen. And it should be no more than 1 month. Well, what will happen if you want it to be longer? Then you're no longer doing Scrum. You're doing something else. Scrum prescribed. Does that mean you're not Agile? You could be Agile, you're just not doing Scrum. You're doing something similar to Scrum, but it's not Scrum. So if you have a 6-week sprint, you could be Agile, but you are not Scrum. So during the sprint, no changes can be made that will endanger the sprint goal. We'll talk about that later. But here is the thing. Work can change during the sprint. The developers can reduce the work or increase the work, but the sprint goal does not change. Very, very, very important. For example, we have a sprint goal to develop a user profile for WhatsApp. What does the WhatsApp profile have? It has your name, your picture, your location, a statement, a status, etc. And the sprint goal is we want to develop the user profile or the profile page. Then you start working. And then you get to the sprint and you ask, well, you set the location, but do you want the home address? Do you want the street address? Do you want the city or the town or the state? You see how in that thing called location, there are many variables. The team has to decide, what will it be? Maybe in the beginning they said we want the street address, we want the home address for the user profile. And then at some point they say, you know what, we don't need that. Let's just limit it to the city and the country or state. Has the goal changed? The goal has not changed. Has the work changed? Yes, the work has changed because you've eliminated some, you've changed some, but the goal has not changed. So it's important to note that during the sprint, the goal does not change. The work may change, but the goal will not change. You may have a goal to paint your house, and you may start and say, we're going to paint this blue, green, yellow, orange. At the end, you say, you know what? Let's paint it white. Have you painted your house? Yes. So the goal has been accomplished. But did the work change? Absolutely. All right. So over to sprint planning. Sprint planning is an activity that is 8 hours maximum according to the Scrum Guide. And it should be adjusted accordingly for shorter sprints. As a Scrum Master, you want to ensure that your team is working within the Scrum Guide. You are the champion of Scrum. You are the promoter of Scrum. You are the expert of Scrum. So your role is to keep the team within the bounds of all of this. The product owner, being the champion, we'll talk about that later, ensures the attendees' readiness. And during the planning, the team collaborates. Discussions go back and forth as to what the goal should be, how it should be accomplished, who should do the work, how the work should be done, and what work will be done. That said, when the product owner for the WhatsApp application decided to develop WhatsApp, during one sprint, they might have said, okay, let's work on the messaging. And they would have limited that scope of work to items that require developing messaging. And that will form the backlog. That plan to deliver it, to identify who is doing the work and what the work is and what the work will do, all of that forms the backlog. So the backlog is not just a list of what should be done. You will see that on the test as well. It's not just only a list of what should be done. It also includes the plan to deliver the work. And the daily scrum is time boxed to 15 minutes or less. Everything should be done in 15 minutes or less. It's not a meeting to the Scrum Master. It's not a meeting to the manager. It's not to check anything else except the sprint goal. Can we make that goal? Do we need to change something? For example, do we need to change from street address, all those details to just city and state? We can inspect it, and then we can now go and have meetings to discuss further what to do. It's held at the same time and place to reduce complexity. It doesn't have to be the same time every day. But for simplicity's sake, you keep it the same time and place. The Scrum Master does not have to be there. The product owner does not have to be there, and you shall see that on the test. Only the developers must attend. Only the developers must attend. No one else, because it is for the developers. The developers must attend this daily Scrum. The sprint review, extremely important for the test. The sprint review is an opportunity to inspect the increment, the work that has been done during the sprint. It is an opportunity to check and discuss what to do next. You will see this on the test, particularly if you're taking the maybe level 2 certificates. They will always try to trick you between the review and the retrospective. The review focuses on the product. What was done and what can we do next to deliver the product? It is a working session. So everyone is discussing, the developers are discussing, the product owner is discussing, ideas are being exchanged, etc., etc. It is not limited to a presentation. Demos happen, but demos don't make the event. What makes the event is the discussion from the stakeholders, feedback from the stakeholders, feedback from the product owner, from even the developers themselves, and sometimes even users. The retrospective is the final event in the sprint. Very important to note. You will see this on questions on both the PSM1 and PSM2 exams. You will get a question like, when does the next sprint start? When does the next sprint start? And they'll give you an option. Option A may be the next day. Option B may be when the product owner says so. C may be when the work is complete. D may be the next working day. Or rather, at the start of at the end of the sprint, or immediately following the retrospective. The correct answer is the next sprint starts the next working day, not the next day. Remember, day is one option, the next working day is another option. Here is an example. In real life, a sprint may be a 1 week sprint. 1 week does not mean Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 1 day week means 1 working week, which will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So when would the next sprint start? At the end of the retrospective, meaning after the retrospective ends on Friday. The next sprint starts the next working day, which will be Monday morning. Friday, Saturday is not a working day. Sunday is not a working day. So when the sprint ends, the next sprint starts the next working day. Here is a question. What if Monday is a holiday and your sprint ends on Friday? What happens to the next sprint? The next sprint starts on Tuesday. But here is the thing. You do a retrospective on Friday. Monday is not a working day. But your sprint is a 1 week sprint, which means your sprint has 5 days in the sprint. But Monday is a holiday. So how many days are in your sprint? 4. You don't go and add another day. No. That sprint will be 5 days. 1 day just happens to be a holiday. So the duration has not changed. On Friday, you will still have your retrospective, even though you didn't work on Monday. You must still have that retrospective on Friday. It's just going to be a retrospective based on 4 working days. Very important. And these are questions that, because you have not worked, you may not necessarily conceptualize because you have not experienced it. Okay? All right. So we'll talk about some Scrum artifacts. We have 5 more minutes before we dive into day 2 itself, which is 1 hour of detail on the Scrum roles. All right, we'll talk about the artifacts, the product goal, the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the increment. These are 3 artifacts. The product backlog consists of everything that must be needed or done to develop the product. And in order to do that, you must have a product goal. So you commit to the product goal. Similarly, the sprint backlog, being a subset of the product backlog, must have a sprint goal. So if you're in that short period of time, you must have a sprint goal. And the increment must have a definition of done, which means that when the work is done, when that increment has been formed, there has to be a set of parameters that indicate that yes, indeed, it is done. So if you are developing and you say done involves releasing to production so that the customers can use it, you can't say you've done it and it's sitting on your desk when nobody's using it, so you're not done. So that is really what the definition of done means. All right, so the word emergent and ordered, we will talk about that when we talk about the product owner. But the product backlog emerges because at the start, just like when you're cooking and you're not exactly sure which ingredients you're going to put in the pot, you may discover that, okay, you've added pepper, but you want to add salt as well. Maybe you want to add a black pepper, it wasn't on your mind at the beginning. So this product backlog emerges and is ordered based on value. Very important. Value. And who decides the value? The product owner. We'll talk more about that. The backlog items can be broken down into smaller items during an event called refinement or grooming. This ties to Agile principle number 12. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the work not done, is essential. So Scrum calls it refinement. When you break items down, when you go for an interview, you're going to be asked, on the team you work, how do you do your refinement sessions? Well, if you never worked and your resume is a lie, you're going to have a hard time answering that. There are 2 ways to do refinement. Actually, maybe more. You can do refinement ongoing so that the product owner is always checking with the developers who do the work. How are we going to do this? And then he's breaking down, or they are breaking down the work together. You may go to, for reference, for simplicity, let's use a house. I like a house because everybody lives in a house or home or something of that sort. In the context of a home, which is extremely important, the homeowner may refer to the painter. How are we going to go about painting this house? What kind of paint do we need? And then they are working and clarifying the need for painting. Then the owner of the house can go now to the gardener to talk about gardening. How are we going to do the garden? How do you want to do the lawn? They are talking about it one-on-one. But together, there's more understanding of the work needed for the house. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to gather everyone together and sit down and have an open conversation and say, okay, we need to paint, we need to work on the yard, we need to do this, and then everyone contributes. In Scrum or Agile, both are okay. And sometimes both are used together, where the team, during the entire course of the sprint, will be doing refining of the work, and the Scrum Master is involved. Or the team may set aside time and call it a refinement meeting. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It varies from team to team. So you'll be asked how you do your refinement. The product goal does not change. The product goal may change, but usually when the product goal changes, there may be it may require a different product backlog. If you want to build a house and you move from that to say, okay, I'm going to build a hotel, your goal has changed. So your product backlog has changed. Okay? But as long as the product exists, the product goal must exist, and the product backlog must exist. And it's similar for the sprint backlog. The most important thing about the sprint backlog, which you shall be tested on, it is a plan by the developers for the developers. They are the ones doing the work. On your test, each time you see the word sprint, think developers. Each time you see the word product, think about the product owner. And it's updated throughout the sprint as more is learned. The sprint product backlog emerges, remember, and the sprint backlog is updated. Just like when we talked about the example to do with the user profile on your application. That sprint may have started with, we want to create the user profile. The user profile will have a picture, it will have a name, it will have a location. And then as the work is being done, you update it now to include pictures. You update it, maybe you want a gallery of photos, maybe you want a status. Now you're updating it. The goal is not changing to create that user profile, but you update it as more is known. All right, so that's important to know. And the sprint goal is that commitment that comes out of the sprint backlog that is attached to the sprint backlog. All right, here's a summary. The increments, the interesting thing or the most tricky thing about an increment, maybe I didn't touch on this earlier, but remember, every sprint must produce a releasable increment. However, the increment must not be released. It's on every test. The increment consists of all the work done previously. If you're cleaning your house and you start with the living room, when you go to the bedroom, you add the living room to the bedroom to say you are done, all the way till you clean your house. So the increment is a constant increase of the product as it's being done. However, if I want to inspect your home and I tell you, start cleaning on Monday and finish on Friday, I'm going to be checking. I may check every day. Here's how the increment will work. On Monday, you clean the living room and you prepare for an inspection. I come and inspect. You've completed a sprint, you've completed an increment, and you have released an increment. Day 2, you clean the kitchen. Now your increment has increased. Living room plus the kitchen. You're ready to be inspected. I don't come. Day 3, you go to the bedroom. You have the living room, you have the kitchen, you have the bedroom. Now you have a bigger increment every sprint. Then I come and inspect. So that's almost like a release, which means when you're developing your application, you can develop the login, but you don't have to make it public. You say, wait, let's have the user profile. You work on it. You don't have to release it, but it's usable. Then you work on messaging. You don't have to release it, but then you say, you know what? Let people start using it. You release, which means the real increment must be releasable, but must not be released. That is why on your phones, you may have an app that will update once a month, updates after 3 months, They may wait for Christmas before they release that feature, because Christmas is when people are spending. There are many factors that go into a release. But the increment must be releasable. Very important. I think when I wrote the exam, that's the question I failed. I may have missed one. I think that was it. And I am committed to not allowing anyone else miss that question. All right, with that, we'll conclude and we will shift gears to lesson number 3. The fun begins with we are talking about the Scrum team. The Scrum team. All right. And we're going to talk about the product owner role, the developer role, the Scrum Master role. We are not going to do activities. That is for those who actually go through the class. Remember, these slides are actually slides from my training that consists of 12 classes. So we are going through lesson 1, 2, and 3 really quickly. And with all that I give you, you should be able to practice and prepare and pass the test. You'll be surprised how easy those questions will look by the time you start trying them. Go to scrum.org and start practicing those questions, and you'll be able to get them right. All right, so we want to understand the 3 roles, and then most importantly, understand the different stances of a Scrum Master. This is not in the Scrum Guide. This is practical stuff. What will happen when you're actually in the field? We are going to spend more time on that because it is what the Scrum Guide does not give you. All right. Okay. So we'll talk about the product owner. The product owner is one person and not a committee. Meaning you can have a group of product owners. In the Scrum Guide, that's what it says. On the Scrum test, how would they ask you? They will ask you, for level 1 exam, it would be, how many product owners can a product have? 1. For the level 2 exam, same information, same theory, but a little bit more tricky. They will say, a company has this product and they have 4 teams, and they want to now scale and split that product into 2 different teams of products, but 1 major product. How many product owners can a product have? They will convolute it, but the answer is 1. The answer is 1. They will twist it, but the answer is 1. 1 product owner. And the product owner owns the backlog. The product owner is responsible for the backlog. In standard project management, the project manager has authority over the project. In Scrum, the product owner owns the backlog. Remember, the backlog is not the project. The backlog is not the product. The backlog is a list of what must be done to accomplish the goal, to accomplish or deliver the product. Very different from project management. Project management says, you are the project manager. You are going to plan, execute, budget, define, scope, all those things. Scrum is saying the product owner is part of a team, and he's going to focus on that list, that found that is the premise for the work. He represents the voice of the customer and the stakeholder, which means the product owner must know the most. You're going to get this on the test. The question is going to read like this: who must know the most about the product? Keyword: product. Product owner. He must know the most because he's collaborating with the stakeholders. The stakeholder could be a client. He must know the most because he's defining the work and defining the details of the work. The developers are doing it. He doesn't tell them what to do or how to do. He's just focusing on that. So just like when you own your home and you know what should be done to that home, you might say, I want this, I want this. You are the owner of it. The people who are doing the work is that painter that will tell you, you know, you need an extra coat of paint. But you own it. So the product owner owns the backlog. Because of that, he's accountable for maximizing the value. We remember they love the word maximizing. You maximize the value of the product, you maximize the value of the work not done. When you write your exam, when you see words like maximizing, you should know in your mind words that are Scrum words. If the words are not words you have seen on the Scrum guide, the answer is wrong. You eliminate it. Otherwise, you confuse yourself. So there are certain keywords, those in black and bolded. When you see those words on the test, your mind should be going towards there. So the product owner is accountable for the effective backlog management, which means that the product owner may approach developers. Let's talk about this feature. Let's talk about this work. What do you need? What must be done? And then the product owner would put in more information to help the developers do the work. Oh, pardon me. Let me pause for a minute. Let's take a break so I can attend to this. Thank you all for your patience. Let me be back to the sharing. I had a little emergency, so to turn off the alarm. So we'll continue. Let's see. Okay, sharing again. Try to share the entire screen. All right. All right, we'll continue with the product owner role. So the product owner is accountable for effective backlog management. He goes through with the team, either individually or as a team, to talk about the backlog. If there are questions about work items, feature, stories, etc., the product owner is the source and the reference. The product owner is the one who determines decisions about the product, even about whether to end the project altogether. The product owner owns it. And the company management must support the product owner. So as a Scrum Master, part of what you're doing is also educating the product owner if they are not familiar with Scrum, empowering them to abide by Scrum. Then the developer role. Developers are the ones that do the work, and they must have the skills necessary to develop the product. They are accountable. Remember that the product owner is accountable for the product backlog. The developers have their own accountability, and they are accountable for creating the plan. So on the exam, you're going to see a question like, who is accountable for creating the plan for the sprint? Keyword is sprint. When you see the word sprint, you think developer. Who is accountable for adapting the plan or the work to be delivered during the sprint? Keyword is developer. So the developers really are product oriented within the context of the sprint goal, within the context of the sprint. Who is accountable for instilling quality to meet the definition of done? The developers. So they have their own accountability with respect to the work and the sprint. Questions that will confuse you will have to do with sprint and product. The Scrum Master role, Scrum Master is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined by the Scrum Guide. You must be familiar with the Scrum Guide. Print it out and have it close to you. I have mine under my desk. It is very close to me. I read it as quickly as I can. It is boring, but the more you read it, the more you get used to it. So be very familiar. Print it out and keep it close to you. When you wait in line at the doctor's office, pull it out and read. Have it on your phone. Check it constantly, because you're going to be asked by the team, what does Scrum say? What does the Scrum Guide say? Sometimes you might say, let me check, but most times you should know what the Scrum Guide says. So you are accountable for Scrum's implementation. And the product owner is accountable for what? Product backlog. The developers are accountable for the sprint and turning that sprint backlog into an increment. The Scrum Master is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness with respect to Scrum as an agile framework. So you are a leader. And your leadership is not limited to the Scrum Guide. Your leadership is about enabling the team, keeping the team together, keeping the team focused according to all those values and all those principles of Agile. And also the values of Scrum itself. And because of all of this, the Scrum Master will serve the Scrum team and serve the organization and serve all these entities. Here you will see, we'll have here services to the organization, and then we start with services to the Scrum team, then the product owner, and then the organization. When you work as a Scrum Master, you're not going to do the same thing for the developers as you would for the Scrum, the team or the organization. What Scrum does not put here or tell you is how to interact with other teams, how to interact with other Scrum Masters. The Scrum Guide does not go that far. But when you think about level 2 certificates, you start thinking about how to use Scrum with multiple teams. And then your interaction with other Scrum Masters becomes important. But with respect to Scrum, the Scrum Guide itself is defined what you need to do for the Scrum team. You coach them, you teach them. So if you are not really mature as a person or as a professional or as a leader, it will be difficult. And that is why companies pay Scrum Masters a lot of money. And that is why it is important to be yourself, to be true to yourself. If you are 30 years old and you've worked for 7 years and you've worked in a factory that produces cutlery and you want to transition to Scrum, why throw 7 years of factory work away? When in order to work in a factory, you must be on time, you must adhere to quality, you must work with people, you must deal with a lot of complexity. And because of that, you can present yourself as someone who can manage their time, manage themselves, manage others, work with others. And you will come into Scrum with 7 years of management experience. It may not be 7 years of Scrum experience, but 7 years of management experience that can prove that you can coach, you can motivate, you can inspire others to do the work. Your resume just has to show it, and you have to confidently articulate it. Then you help the team focus on the work that needs to be done, on the goal. Easy to understand, easy to write on a test, but in practical life, how easy is it? You may have children, for example, that have to do their homework. How easy is it for a parent to keep the child on the task at hand? We know we should do it, but do we always do it? No. We might say, well, they are hungry. Well, let them have a snack. Well, break is 15 minutes, but watch TV for 5 minutes. My brother, my sister, when you're on a Scrum team, it's not easy to keep them focused on what needs to be done. It's easy to know it, but it's not easy to do it. So you have to find ways to help them stay focused during meetings, focus when they are working, focus on the goal at hand, and interested in the work. It is your responsibility as a Scrum Master. And to do that, not only must you keep them focused on the work, you have to keep distractions away. So when you give your child that schoolwork or homework to do as a parent or an aunt, a sister or a brother, it is your responsibility to turn the TV off, to put the toys away. That's how you help the child. So when the team is focused on working, the developers do what developers do. They work on code. the program. Then they can't get access to AWS or Amazon Cloud or Google this or Google that. It is your responsibility to say, don't worry. Can you work on something else? Let me call the boss. Let me call the manager. Let's fix it. Keep doing something else. That is how you keep the impediments away. I keep them motivated. Isn't it interesting that all these things are very brief, just a simple page of document, and we are already through, almost to the end. But that is all there is to it. You can write this exam tomorrow and you can pass. But then you're going to have a certificate, and then what? Nonetheless, to the product owner, how do you help the product owner? Many Scrum Masters, particularly new Scrum Masters, are weak with respect to helping the product owner. Think about it. Find techniques to effectively manage the product, define the goal. You've never worked as a product owner. Maybe you've never worked in technology. You've never developed software. So how do you sit down to help the product owner? Tricky. There are two ways to go about it. Either you know about it, you know the product, you know the information, and you know what's needed, or you know how to ask questions. Asking the right questions or asking questions is what will differentiate you as a Scrum Master. You don't need to know the work. You don't need to know the product. You can take me and put me in, let me see, what is the most ridiculous product I can think about? Maybe, let me say something like fish farming, where I eat fish. So I'll go on a fish farm. I don't know anything about raising fish. And I can ask, how much fish do you want to produce in a month, in a year? Okay, all right. Do you have the space to contain the fish? You have this. Okay, when the fish is full in this container, okay, where the next does it go? Okay, all right. So all you're doing is asking questions, and you're probing that person now to examine. Person might say, oh, now that you talk about it, we may need another container. Okay, so who is going to put that container? Now you're already creating work. And now that product owner is defining work that needs to be done. And then you may ask, okay, what's more important? Having healthy fish or having the capacity to expand? And when you're done here, are you going to go to another location? And in all that, you are helping the product owner prioritize what should be done next. When developing software on my Q slot team, I meet with the Scrum Masters every Friday. We talk about different things. I'm the product owner. It's my idea. But then I ask them, what do you think we should work on next? These are all the features. Let's try to prioritize them so that when I talk to the developers, when I talk with the team, I can tell them this is what I want to do next. And then they help. And then they can also now say and boast and claim, rightfully so, that I help the product owner determine what to work on next. Easy to write, not so easy to do. But the Scrum Master helps the Scrum team and the product owner get in sync. You may have a product owner that's not available. It is your duty as the Scrum Master to bring them together to say, hey, product owner, you're defining all this work that needs to be done. The team wants to do the work, but you are not available to answer the questions. What is going on? Can we sit down and make sure that they understand, etc., etc.? So you are a facilitator. You should be able to arbitrate. You should be able to resolve conflict. You should be able to influence. These are skills that the Scrum guy will not tell you. You pass the exam, but you will not have for the job. So while you're helping the product owner deal with the complexity of the work, just by asking questions, you don't have to be an expert. Helping the product owner deal with the developers, deal with the stakeholders, deal with the customers. You may ask the product owner, so what do the customers think about the product? You might say, well, I don't know. What do the customers think about this feature? Well, I don't know. Okay, fine. Have you considered a review? Have you considered some kind of survey? Have you considered some kind of, maybe bring them to the review? You're helping the product owner. So that should be on your resume. You shouldn't go and cut and paste these things and say, I help the product owner, stakeholder collaboration, or with when I read that on the resume, I just skip to the next. But if you put something simple like help the product owner define details on a survey to customers, bingo, then I know you've actually done something. Because it is not a job description. You're not going to read any job description that says you as a Scrum Master should help the product owner define details of a survey. But if you look at the resumes out there, it's all about cut and paste. You can help the product owner in simple ways. And you can state it on your resume, even if it's 4 or 5 bullets. It will demonstrate that you've done something to do with the product. That said, we'll transition to the organization. Many organizations get excited about what's the fad or what's fashionable. And right now, the word agile is fashionable. Everybody wants to be agile. Everybody wants to use Scrum. They don't even know. So you as the Scrum Master would lead, train, and coach the organization in Scrum or Agile. Easy to say, but how do you as the Scrum Master lead, train, and coach the organization in that? First, you have to observe, you have to identify, you have to realize what the organization needs. And how do you know that? You talk to people. You call managers in other departments. You call executives in the company. How do you feel about this? You chat with them. Oh, I saw you on this meeting. What's your role? What do you do? Talk to them. Okay, what do you understand about Scrum? Do you need? And then you guide them. Do you have 15 minutes for a chat here? You chat with them. Okay, what do you know? Questions. You spend your day asking questions and getting that feedback, getting that pull and understanding of where the organization is going. Your team may be the only Scrum team, and maybe there are teams that are not using Scrum. Okay, why is that other team not using Scrum? Why is that other department not using Scrum? You ask those questions, and then you have opportunities now to discuss what direction is the company going. And you'll be surprised what you can do. That's where your raise will come from. That's where mine came from, where my team, and because I love certifications, I went on certification on Kanban. And all of a sudden, the customer said, well, we are done with development. We are moving into operations and maintenance. We want Kanban. It's a government customer. They get what they want. There was no one in my organization that knew Kanban or was certified. So I said, I'll do the training. I'll do the transformation. I'll do the coaching. So I got everyone on the Zoom. It took about 3-4 months. The entire organization, the government customers, team by team, there were 13 teams. Gave the training, gave the teaching, including the other Scrum Masters. By the time I was done with my resume, I was like, that's impressive. But that's what you do to stand out. And then I went out to my boss and I say, sir, here is a suggestion. You're moving to Kanban. Scrum has these roles and responsibilities. Kanban does not have these roles and responsibilities. Your organization needs to set up a structure that will work for you, but you don't have one. I have been playing that role informally. I need you to create that role for me formally. And he said, put it on a presentation. Let's talk on Wednesday. And I said, fine. Wednesday I came with my presentation. This is the organization structure. This is what we are doing. This is how I will fit. And this is the raise you're going to give me. Simple. They know what they want, but they don't understand what they want. You have to coach, guide, and by so doing, you position yourself. I told them, I woke up one fine day, my pay had increased. Then he told me, oh, by the way, you may have noticed the pay increase. Job done. Now, if you know what you're doing and you're sure what you're doing, I had 3 raises in 1 year just through this transformation period. My pay increased by about $35,000. Just because I was bold and courageous enough to say, this is what you need, this is what I can do, this is where we're going to go, and this is how we'll do it. So helping the organization comes with knowledge. You have to get trained. Don't end with 1 certification. Don't end with 2. Go get more. And you have to plan and advise them. And be nice. It helps break barriers. All right. This is the fun stuff. This is the part that the Scrum guy will not give you. This is the part that few training programs will give you. The stances of a Scrum Master. This is not in the Scrum Guide. We are done. This right here is the end of the Scrum Guide. This right here is knowledge beyond the Scrum Guide that will help you as a Scrum Master. When you go for an interview, some interviews may ask you, what could you do as a Scrum Master? Or what skills do you need as a Scrum Master? This is another way of saying, what stances can you take as a Scrum Master? Everybody knows a Scrum Master is a servant leader, so that's easy. But as a Scrum Master, this is what you would do. You either facilitate, you either coach, you either manage, you mentor, teach, remove impediments, or provoke change. I already went through a change provocation that I enabled in the organization I work for. However, let's back up. Servant leader, there are 2 words in servant leader. 1 is serve, and 2 is lead. Many Scrum Masters focus on the serving part. What do you need? Let me do it. What do you need? I'll do it. What do you want? I'll do it. Oh, you have a problem? I'll fix it. They are serving, but they are not leading. You want to balance both. You want to also identify with your team from the stance of a leader to be able to say, this is what you all are doing. You guys have used this application, it's working well. You've done the programming in JavaScript, and you are using Python for the back end. But I've heard in this other department, they're getting beautiful results with Ruby. It's faster, it's cleaner, it's this. Have you considered Ruby? Is it possible to do an exploration activity on how we can use Ruby? Now you're leading them. You're not telling them what to do, you're just leading. And they might say, let's try that. They try and they say, oh, we like it, this is the direction we'll go. Another example could be organization. You want to use this or you want to use that. I was hired to be an agile project management on the current job I have. And they said, we want to do agile. In their mind, they were thinking they want to do Scrum, but they want to be agile. And When I came on the project, I said, Scrum is not going to work. You guys have a contract that say you'll be agile, and in your mind you want to do Scrum because that's what you want. This project is for Kanban because we are already out there. We have 119 stakeholders, Army bases using the application. It's not complex. We just need to fix. We are going to use Kanban. And there was resistance. So now it was my duty to lead them in the adoption or in the vision or realization of Kanban. So you have to balance between giving people what they want. Sometimes you give them what they want. I'll help them accomplish what they want. But at other times, you must lead them in the direction they need to. Just like you do with your 5-year-old. You lead them the direction they want. Sometimes you let them fall down and watch them rise up. Then as a facilitator, you must set the stage during events. Be the stand-up, the sprint planning, you have to set the stage. During the retrospective, you set the stage. This is what we are here for. When the event starts, hi, I'm the Scrum Master. My name is Heine. If it's an event that has outsiders, for example, we are here for the sprint planning. We are going to go over the backlog, identify what we are going to accomplish this sprint, identify a sprint goal, agree on what the work will be, agree on who will do the work, and are we ready to begin? Bingo, let's begin. I'm going to hand over to the product owner. The product owner will discuss, and if there's anything that I may need to contribute, I would. If you need me, let me know. I'm right here. You step back. They do the work and they collaborate. Sometimes you may need to walk them if it's a new team. Say, okay, this is the work. This is what we're working on. Who is doing this? Who needs to do this? Who needs to know this? Who understands this? You're probing them. If you realize I'm asking a lot of questions, right? I spend my life asking questions. If you don't ask questions, people do not think. Then a coach. You coach the individual. In some instances, you coach the team. Coaching an individual is different from coaching a team. And you, the Scrum Master of a team, coach both the individual and the team. How do you coach an individual? Mostly one-on-one. You meet with the individual and you might have a conversation. You know, I realized during the presentation or during the demo, this is how you go about it. Have you considered A, B, C, or D? And they might say, You might say, this is what happens, or this is how another person does this. Consider adding this. You're coaching them. You don't know the work, you don't know the details of the work, but you are coaching them to improve in the work they are doing. Similarly, you can coach the team. You can coach the team to adopt a new practice. They might say, we heard about this, we want to try this. And you say, okay, fine. Let's think about how we're going to do this. Come up with a basis for assessment, how we measure ourselves, how we determine that we want to go in this direction. So you are coaching them and guiding them to think about what they want to do. And then when they do it, you might say, okay, fine. You guys have done it. We agree on this. This is it. Everybody is happy. You document it. Things like team agreements, team norms, definition of done, those are things that you go from teaching them if they don't know to coaching them to managing those documents. And then you're also a manager. You manage the impediments. Remember when I talked about two things to lean, the amount of time spent doing work and the amount of time waiting for work or handing off work. And time is waste. So as a Scrum Master, you want to help the team manage that time spent working. The sprint, for example, is a beautiful example because the sprint could be 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. So as the Scrum Master, you're helping the team manage them or maximize their usage of time. You have 15 minutes for the stand-up. That's why they'll ask you on an interview. How do you help the team keep to the boundary of time? Maintain the time box. 15 minutes for the Scrum, for the stand-up, 8 hours for planning. You help the team manage the time. It's not just saying it, they'll ask you how. And when you go for an interview and they ask you how, one way I know that I am interviewing someone who has never worked as a Scrum Master, even though they claim they have 7 years experience, is when I ask them, how? And they tell me what, or they tell me a why. For example, I'll ask a simple question. Tell me how you help your team come to agreement or consensus on a sprint goal. And the person answering the question tells me, well, the sprint goal is important because the sprint goal enables the team to develop a working increment, stay on track, and they come up with all this theoretical stuff. And I shake my head inside and say, nope, you've never worked as a Scrum Master. I asked you how, and you're telling me why or what. Do not make that mistake. If they ask you how, talk about how. How do you help your team keep to time? How do you help your team stay within 2 hours for planning, 2 hours for this? Will you now start telling me, oh, the planning meeting is important, it's important for people to stick to time? You've already missed the interview. How do you help your team manage time? Well, at intervals, I may say, we have 30 minutes left for the event. If we have not covered anything, it will be covered on the next meeting. If someone is going off course, I may say, listen, I appreciate your input. What you're saying is really detailed, but I don't think we can cover all of it in this meeting. Should I set up another meeting so we can address your details? Or do you want to wait till after this meeting to continue talking about it? Nonetheless, we need to keep moving. That is a how you help your team manage time. Don't tell me why. Don't tell me what. Otherwise, to the next candidate. What stands as a Scrum Master? Mentor. You mentor the team. First, with the knowledge of Agile and Scrum. Because you are not a domain expert in the field of development, you can mentor them to develop software, but you can mentor them in the knowledge of Scrum. There's a big difference between a coach and a mentor. Very important. The difference between a coach and a mentor. Many people may not have thought about it. But when you mentor someone, you must have domain knowledge and experience. If you are a mentor of a music star or a singer, you must have been a singer. You must have been a mentor to say, you know what, I was there. When I went through this is what I felt. It'll be okay. That's mentoring. And you transfer that knowledge to enable them get to the next level. So as a Scrum Master, Agile and Scrum are your domain. So you mentor them in that regard, individuals and the team. To coach, you don't need domain knowledge. That is why you can have a coach have no experience. Think about soccer, for example. There are many soccer coaches that have never played soccer, but they're coach. Because it involves coaching the team to success. So two different things, and the main difference is domain knowledge. Teaching, you must be able to teach. Teach on Scrum, teach on Agile. If you don't know, you pull up the slides. I make all my slides, my information available and accessible to my students. So if you want these slides, I'll give them to you. The problem is you need to know what's on the screen because they'll ask you questions. If you don't know, then we'll go back to here, facilitating. So if you don't know, you find someone who can teach. You may need to teach the team about conflict resolution. And you don't know much about conflict resolution, but the team is going through conflict. So you facilitate the event, you make it happen. You find someone who's an expert in conflict resolution, you bring them, let them execute the training, and you're the star for making it happen. Then you're also an impediment remover. Impediment removing involves solving a problem. You have a heavy desk in your home and you need it moved. And I say, my neighbor is very strong. He's at the gym every single day. He can lift that thing in no time. I'm the Scrum Master. And I say, okay, fine. I can get his number. I call him, hey, John, so and so needs your help. You have the muscles. Come and lift this. I've removed your. However, remember, we want to be self-organizing. We want the team to work. We want the team to get to a place where they don't need a Scrum Master. So you want to get to a point of managing. See here, a manager responsible for managing impediments. Here, they talk about impediment remover. So what is the difference between managing an impediment and removing an impediment? Understanding that is the difference between an average Scrum Master and a good Scrum Master. I just explained to you what it means, an example of removing an impediment. You have a heavy desk, you need help to move it. I call my buddy, who is a neighbor who goes to the gym every day, and I say, come, we need some help here. He removes the impediment, your problem is solved. The problem is, tomorrow you may need help again, and I may not be there. And then what happens? You're stuck. So you're no longer self-managing. So for me now to manage that impediment, guess what will happen? I'll call my buddy John and I'll say, John, we need your help. John comes, he does the help. And I say, oh, John, meet Mary. All right, Mary, here is John's number. I'm going to put it on the wall. Anytime you need help, John, you can call John. John, is it okay? John will say, oh, no problem. Call me anytime. I just managed that impediment so that if I go on vacation and you, Mary, need help, you're no longer scrambling. You say, oh, my Scrum Master put John's number on the wall. Ring John. You have managed the impediment. So you, the Scrum Master, will be good when, as you're removing the impediment, you're creating processes within the team that will help them and get them to a point where you're no longer needed. You come to work and you fold your arms. Everybody knows what to do, who to go to if they are stuck. That is how you enjoy your job as a Scrum Master, and you get paid to do nothing. But you must first work to get to that point. Finally, a change agent. You should foster change and provoke change. So I talked about change enough. We can go over here to the 8 stances, and then we'll round up and we'll have 1 hour to wrap up. The last hour, we'll talk about your resume, we'll talk about jobs, we'll talk about the next steps. So we talked about the 8 stances, and this slide here shows situations where you can actually implement or be in this mode, so to speak. A facilitator of events, Scrum events, and let me mention also non-Scrum events. Your job as a Scrum Master is to facilitate everything that involves the team. Make it happen, ensure it happens, and present the system or environment for continuity. For example, the team is working on developing Facebook, and they're working on the feature, call it the sharing feature. And then they are stuck because they can't get to the team that manages the wall. Facebook used to call it the wall or the profile. You, the Scrum Master, say, okay, all right. What do you need? Well, I'm having trouble getting in touch with so and so. And you say, well, let me reach out to the other Scrum Master. Then you now set up a meeting. Is it okay? Let me set up a meeting for this discussion to happen. You set up the meeting, you bring everyone involved together, and you say, okay, I set up this meeting because person A, person B said they needed help. John, can you go over your need? John will summarize his need. All right, Mary, you from the other team, you've heard John speak. Is this something you can do? Is this someone you know who can do it? Mary contributes. Okay, you need someone else? Well, they are not in this meeting. Let me get them. You know nothing about what they're talking about. You don't need to know. All you need to do is ask questions, move the discussion forward. And then when you coach, we talked about one-on-one coaching, team coaching, etc. And as a manager, to manage the process and manage also expectations. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Everyone understands the same goal. And everyone is on the same mind. And how do you do it? By verifying, asking, checking, verifying. Are you sure you can complete this task? Are you okay with the task? Are you comfortable with the task? If not, do we need to let the product owner know? Do we need to let the team know? All you're doing is asking questions. And then you now bring the team together. Listen, one person has voiced a concern about our ability to deliver this functionality. Are you sure you really want to go ahead and do this? Do we need to scale back? You need to know nothing about the details. And then the expectation gets managed to a point of reality. The team is happy, your job is done. Same for mentoring the team in the understanding of agility. Many teams these days are limited in their knowledge of agility. I started with a team of developers on QSlot that knew nothing about Scrum. But now their knowledge has increased steadily due to guiding and mentoring, and even teaching, because you will teach them on these concepts one by one. And of course, in order to remove impediments, you must know who does what. If you're a Scrum Master and you're focused on your team and your team alone, you're not going to go very far and you're not going to do well. You must know the other team Scrum Masters, because when there are issues with the other team, you will go to the other Scrum Master. You must know the other product owners. You must know what they are working on. You must know human resources. You must know the benefit center, because when your team is short, hey, Heine, what's the number to human resources? They will ask you for everything. Do you know if we are off on July 4th, Labor Day, Independence Day? Do you know we get this Labor Day off? You give them the answer. To know the answer, you must know where to find the answer. You must be resourceful. So when you join an organization, the first few months, you're talking to any and everyone, starting with them and making notes. What job do you do? How long have you been here? What's your expertise? What do you know? Blah, blah, blah. Who do you go to when you need help? Who do you go to when you're stuck? Who do you get along with? Ask the questions, a list of questions. Document. And if you're working remotely, you might even seem more impressive. What I did, I typed very fast, right? And I could type at the speed of talking. So I'm talking with you remotely, my camera is off, and I'm typing every single thing you're saying. So that when I talk to you next month, I pull it up and I'm going back everything when you say, whoa, this guy remembers everything. I don't remember, I just wrote it down. And next time we talk and I need help, you're very, very happy because I remember the university your child is going to. I remember you went on vacation to Spain. I remember all those things. And I say, hey, how was your vacation in Spain? Did you make it fine? Oh, you know what? I have a Scrum Master that needs some help. This code. And here you're the one to help, man. What can you do about it? Say, oh, let me see what I do. And I set up a meeting. Problem solved. Problem solved. It's not that difficult, but it is tricky and it requires engagement. If you are trying to get into this field because you think it is relaxed and you do nothing, turn off this thing and just leave because you're not going to do well. It is enjoyable because you see the impact. It is enjoyable because you see change. When I was on a team once, and there was a team member who refused to speak to me. I requested meetings. I'm busy. I can't show up. And I left her alone. 1 week passed, 2 weeks passed, 3 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. You know what happened? On the call, he was speaking on a meeting. And after the meeting, during the meeting, I messaged her and I said, you don't sound like your usual self. Is everything okay? She didn't answer. After the meeting, I called. I said, wow, you always sound a little bit more lively. Is everything okay? And she said, I'm a little low on this and that. And I said, okay, everything will be okay. I said, you know what? These are some supplements I use. Check them out. And I sent her the link to some supplements on Amazon. I said, try these out. Let me know how the supplements work. 2 days later, I checked on her. Did you get any of these supplements? How are they working for you? She said, oh, I got one and I think it really helps. I really like it. Well, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Tell me about your day. We ended up speaking for 30 minutes. And that was the end of it. I didn't have to chase her down for a meeting. I didn't have to chase her down to find out how she was doing. She would message me. After this meeting, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. And her contribution on the team changed. She came to me and said, let me tell you what really frustrates me in this team. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. It took me 2 months. 2 months. And it turns out that she was a very knowledgeable person. And what she was keeping inside was very relevant to the team. Once I took her contribution, I said, but why are you not speaking? Well, nothing ever happens. I'm tired of speaking, blah, 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 blah. I said, let's try something different. Within 3 months, by the time we started getting on well, maybe 1, 2 months after that, city and dynamic of the team changed. Constant. There is this model, I'll leave it for you to research. It's called the ADCAR model. I'll be making a video on it. I will not go to talk about it, but it is on an organization called ProSci. I plan on getting certified in the ADCAR model, but it can be used for individuals and teams. It's an acronym that stands for, in order to provoke change, there must be awareness for change. If there is no awareness for the change, you will not have any desire. So if you want to change someone's behavior, you must give them the awareness and the desire. But many times we skip that step and we say, oh, we want to give you the knowledge. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. The question is why? Why are you telling me what I should do? So you meet someone and say, oh, hey, this is what you should do. The person is telling you about their problems and you're telling them what they should do. It will not work. You must first make them aware, then bring out the desire. And you do that by asking questions. Oh, have you considered this in this matter? Have you looked at this? What is your goal? What do you really want to change? You're complaining about your manager. Tell me what the end state will be. What should your relationship be? What do you want that relationship to be with the manager? Yes, I hear you say the manager is not treating you well. But what have you considered doing? What have you done? Can you do something differently to do something? And that person will be telling you now, I want this, I want that, I want that. Then you provide the knowledge based on the desires they have shared. You follow these things, you see the results. Now we need to keep moving because we need to get to the important part. I have some scenarios here that you want to consider as a Scrum Master. And these scenarios are when you are new to a team, and this is what makes people really scared of getting in the workforce because they can't conceptualize certain things. But I want you to think and live out here with the knowledge of certain scenarios. And as you're learning, think of these scenarios always. One, you're new to the team. What do you do? How do you go about interacting with the team? How do you engage the team? You're new to the team, you set up one-on-ones. I want to know you, I want to know the work you're doing. You don't have to tell them. Remember, never tell anybody what to do unless they ask you. Never tell the team what to do unless they ask you or they are in the teaching mode. You will fail. Make suggestions, make recommendations, watch the results, and then take those results back and say, hey, you say you wanted to do this. Is it working? They'll say, no, it's not working. Okay, all right, can you try this now? They will gladly try it. But if you tell them, oh, try this. No, you already lost them. And when you're new, don't jump into a team and say, oh, on my previous job, this is what we did. On my back job, this is what we do. Let's do this. You have lost them. You're new to the team. You come in and say, I am Heine. I am here to help you. I'm here to serve you. Let me know what you do. Show me what you do. Teach me what you do. I don't know. I don't understand programming. Let me see that code. Well, thanks. You're a smart guy. I don't think I want to know further. What do you know about Agile? What do you know about Scrum? Okay, how are the meetings run here? You attend the meetings, you sit back and relax. Observe, and then you might now wait at the end. Say, okay, these are the results. How is this working? What do you want to change? Ask questions, and then now you start making recommendations. And then you coach them through those recommendations. When a new team member joins the team, oh, welcome. Let's have a meeting. Let's get to know everyone. You are the one setting up those meetings. Okay, do you know where everything is? Do you know where the coffee machine is? Do you know where the break room is? Do you know where human resources is? Do you know where this is? You get to know. Do you need someone on the team to hold your hand and show you how to work? You enable all of that. Same with the product owner. Who are the documents? Who are the team agreements? Who are this? You are showing them all of this, checking in on them. Is everything okay? Do you have what you need? Can anyone help you? Oh, by the way, who are you getting along with? When you get stuck, who do you go to? Questions. If you don't provide, success is not in providing solutions. Success is in asking the right question. That's what many people don't understand. If you come in as a Scrum Master thinking that your success lies in the solutions you provide, you have already failed. Because you cannot provide those solutions without asking the right questions. You'll be building a house on the wrong real estate. You build your house and realize that the property is not yours. So you come into a team, you ask questions, get to know, get to understand. And then the change you bring, the recommendations you bring will be based on the actual need. Then you build and then it will last. When a new team joins the organization, the same thing. You're basically escalating. When a new team member joins, velocity drops. Very good concept. Velocity, we've not touched it, but it's basically performance. Because when a new team member joins, we must accommodate that person. So you think performance will increase, not performance, rather, productivity will increase. No, it will actually drop. So when you're aware of these things, you can help the team better. So what happens when team members don't contribute, or when they don't get along, or when there's conflict? You're in facilitation. You're not in, oh, you did wrong, you did right. No, you don't shout. You don't say, oh, this, and that. No. You ask questions. For those of you who are here on the Scrum team, the product owner who has been helping me with Q slot, one day he went off on me. We worked together 3 years ago. One fine morning, I don't know what, I think I was going through some icebreaker scenario and he got irritated. He said, he went off on me, he said, we're not here to waste time, we're not here to do this, we're not here to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I just sat quiet. And I let the meeting go by. And later on, I said, hey, Martin, is everything okay? You're usually this way and that way. And you always speak in a very respectful manner, very nice. But today seemed to have been different. What do you think? And he said, oh, I know, I'm sorry, this and that. I said, it's okay, what's happening? Then he went into what really happened. So when you find yourself in a situation, you don't go and say, oh, I heard you screaming at this other person. I heard you do this. That's not right. No, you have to ask the foundational question. How do you think the meeting went? How do you think, did anything trigger you on that meeting? And then from there, you have gateways and people will open up. When there's conflict, you always use those fundamentals. All right, so we are going to stop here for now. And here's a summary or review. And we will transition to the next aspect of this. So now we are all having fun. Let me pause for a minute. All right, okay. We are going to transition to the next bit of this, which is the job scenario. If you're having questions or you need to ask a question, I think you can unmute and you can ask your question, but we shall go quickly into the scenario. Now give some tips on getting a job. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, we are going to talk about the job market, the Scrum Master job market. What I want you to see is the market within the United States. And this was a search on Indeed that produced 1,625 results. So anyone that tells you that there are no longer Scrum Master jobs is misinformed. Because there are jobs. The question is it the job you want? Or do you qualify? This one here says 10 years of IT experience. Do you have 10 years? Maybe you come from an IT background, so you qualify. But you may not have been a Scrum Master. Does that mean you will not apply because you've not been a Scrum Master for 10 years? No. There are jobs that you need to make yourself suitable for that job. This is all jobs, but then when you start filtering based on salary, experience level, whether you want remote or non-remote, the number reduces. So the question now becomes, how flexible are you? Do you only want a remote job? If you are new to Scrum and you only want a remote job, you must demonstrate mastery of the job of Scrum. You must demonstrate self-management abilities and skills. When I started working back in 2020, that was actually the pandemic. The fact that I had worked remotely with developers in India for years was a plus, because I had worked remotely for 7 years or 8 years up to that point, maybe even 9, actually, I should say. When you have never worked remotely, but you have only a remote job, will you hire you? That's the question. We have to be realistic. If you search by city or by state, you limit yourself for. But here, this is Care First, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. They're a healthcare company, and they're willing to pay up to $171,000. See the range, 86,000 to 171,000 for the same remote job. Why such a big range? So now here's my question. You who has 0 to 2 years experience want to apply for this Blue Cross Blue Shield job, and you state on your resume you have 10 years experience. You've done this, you've done that. Maybe you worked at Facebook, Microsoft, who knows where. You get called for the interview. You don't get the job, and you're depressed, and you stop applying. Whereas your friend in the same scenario comes and says, I have never worked as a Scrum Master. However, I've been a leader here, I've been a leader there. I have the Scrum certificate. I did an internship for 6 months. I'm affiliated here. I'm passionate about this. And they say, you know what? We like you. You are charismatic. You're engaging. We can offer you $86,000 because you don't have experience. Question now becomes, who is better off? So, are you going to promote your ability to lead, to facilitate, to engage, to mentor? Are you going to promote that? Or are you going to present skills that you do not have? Just because you want to make 171,000, or just because you want to make 120,000? You can start low and get high. When I was getting into the job market in 2020, and I worked extensively with developers, by the time the offer came to me, it was not ideally what I wanted, because I had a master's in electrical engineering. I was serving the army for 7 years. I worked with developers for 7 years. I was thinking I needed a lot of money. But I didn't position myself to claim all as a Scrum Master. I positioned myself to claim leadership experience, IT experience, and a little bit of experience with Scrum and Agile. I got the job. It was low. But what happened? Within 1 year, I got 3 raises that increased my salary by over 30,000. So at the end of the day, who won? There are jobs. You have to be flexible on your search, whether you want remote or not, whether you want to work hybrid. Now there are a lot of hybrid jobs, and whether you want to relocate or not. I am in Virginia right now. When I was hired when I was in Michigan. And they were like, are you flexible? Are you willing to move? I said, I'll move to space. I moved from Africa already. Why would I not move from one state to the next when I move from Africa? I'll move. So that was it. You have to be flexible. Then you increase your chances. Another thing to also do is when you see this job here that says First Care, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and you are a nurse trying to break into Scrum, or a pharmacist, or this, why will you use another person's resume that has nothing to do with the healthcare field? Meanwhile, you're a nurse or you're a pharmacist, and you're already in the medical field. Wouldn't they be happy to know that they're getting a Scrum Master from a medical background? If you apply for that job and I apply for that job, I'm an engineer, work with developers, and maybe I'm experienced and I'm asking for 171,000. You come from a healthcare background, you're familiar with the healthcare field and the processes. Maybe you worked a little bit as a manager in the field, but you're new to Scrum. Would they rather offer you 100,000 to do the job or pay me 171,000 because I have all this experience? Every company wants to save money. You will get the job. They will tell me I'm overqualified. Even though the range is up there. So you have to understand that companies want the right person for the smallest amount of money. So you have to show that you can be as competent as someone who will ask for more money, but you are asking for less. You get a job. When you are in and you have 1-2 years experience, use that time to get certificates. Pack on the certifications, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you get moving. Otherwise, you will be like many out here that are certified, have worked for 1 year, and they cannot get another job. They work for 2 years, they cannot get another job. They are back to the field they were working before because they worked for 2 years as a Scrum Master and they still have that one certificate. Why? The jobs are there, but you have to work your way. Be flexible, be true to yourself, promote your leadership, your non-technical, your non-Scrum experience. Promote those on your resume. And you sell yourself first. See the difference between remote and hybrid work. There are 380 hybrid jobs and 669 remote jobs. So based on the one you want, your options will reduce. The filtering will reduce. So what do you need to break in? You need to know Scrum. And that is why I took time to go through the Scrum Guide and encourage you and give you the confidence to go and get that certificate. And if you are certified, to go and start applying for jobs, rework your resume, reach out to me, we'll work your resume to make it impressive and give you the ability to speak to your experience. Jobs will ask, there is no job that is expecting to hire the perfect candidate. Now, let me tell you something about the perfect candidate. When you read a job description, if there is a job description that you read and you meet 100% of that criteria, let me tell you this, you are overqualified. If you read a job description and half of those things you need that they are looking for is all you can satisfy, apply for that job. Because what the people are looking for is someone who is low on that scale. Remember that 86,000 to 171? They are looking for someone who is low, or either low or up to the middle. That's where you want to fit yourself in. You want to demonstrate those interpersonal skills. That statement after the interview to the next person should be, I like this person. It should not be, this person knows their stuff. No. After an interview, the first comment I make to my boss is, I like them. I don't like them. Why do I like the person? Because they demonstrate interpersonal skills, they demonstrate confidence, they demonstrate comfort in dealing with people, they demonstrate interpersonal attributes, leadership attributes. Knowledge can always be taught. That's why I give you the theory here to be comfortable, to learn about it. Then you need to be comfortable. What will make you comfortable? Hands-on exposure, seeing developers work, being aware of how developers work, and being consistent in your resume. Having your resume speak the language of Agile and Scrum, and knowing how to interview on an interview. There was one very good candidate that I interviewed, my boss and I interviewed. Well, actually, I interviewed, my boss was observing. And this young lady she answered all the questions, not very impressively, but okay. Do you know what actually excluded her completely? When I asked her, do you have any questions for me? And this lady said, no, I don't have any questions. And I said, an interview is the opportunity to know whether or not you want to work for an organization, a team, or a person, or environment, to be sure that this is the job you really want and it suits you. Do you have any questions? She thought, and she said no. At the end of the interview, I told my boss, it's not going to work. He said, yeah, no. That was it. Never go to an interview and they ask you, do you have any questions? And you say no. You have failed the interview. You know what my answer is? When they ask me, do you have any questions? I ask, how much time do I have to ask the questions? If you give me 5 minutes, I'll ask questions for 5 minutes. If you give me 1 hour, we'll be here for 1 hour. They always laugh. And I start firing the questions. The question, do you have any questions, is the question you should be waiting for in every interview. Why? In every interview, everyone gets asked the same question. It's the only way. It's like writing a test. Everybody writes the same test. Then you can know the person who scored a 90 did better than one who scored an 80. So in an interview, everyone interviewing for the same job gets asked the same questions. And when they ask you, do you have any questions? That is your opportunity to sell yourself. I tell you how I got my job and how I got every job I've had. They asked me, do you have any questions? And I said, yes, here's the question. And I asked this guy, the previous manager, I said, what are 2 or 3 of the biggest challenges your team are facing? Or tell me at least one big problem your team is facing. That was not an interview question to me. And nothing he asked me in the interview suggested anything related to that. He said, the team has a hard time reporting or dealing with impediments. And I said, elaborate more. How do you have, but this program has been for a while. He said, things happen and I have we find out that they have happened after a day or two. And I was like, interesting. Then I asked him, do you have a policy for reporting impediments? He said, like what? Tell me more. I said, well, there's a policy that if something happens within 30 minutes, this person needs to know. Within 1 hour, this person needs to know. Within 2 hours, is there something like that? He was like, we have that, but we've had a hard time enforcing it. I said, it's good you have it. I will enforce it. This is what I'll do to make sure everyone knows that policy. Do you have team working agreements? It will be part of the team working agreements. He said, we try to have team working agreement, but I don't think he ever went to team working agreements. I said, well, this is what we'll do. We'll put it on the team working agreements, and then during the retrospectives, we'll review them. I had a job instantly because I asked the question, and no one else on that interview opportunity group was able to separate themselves from everyone. Your goal in an interview is not to answer the question, is to separate yourself from everybody else interviewing for that job. And you can only separate yourself when you ask questions. Don't ask, how much are you paying for this job? That's not a valid question. Don't ask, you can ask, when do I start? That is fine, depending on if you're further along. But ask questions that will separate you from the team. Ask, how mature is the team? Are they new to Agile? If they say it's a new team, then you can say, okay, that means I may have the opportunity to teach them on Agile principles. If you hire me, I'll do this, I'll do that. That is how you sell yourself. Don't say, I don't have any questions. You failed the interview. You separate yourself by the questions you ask, not the answers you provide. All right? That said, I have trainees, I have students, and some of these feedback, some of these reviews that have given have come from people who have paid me to be coached. They've paid me to be trained. The one on the right came to me, and he's an IT person. So I want to learn Scrum, this, and that. We went through the program, he got the training, and I worked with him. I went through his resume, and I told him, I said, my brother, do you know you can make over $250,000 more than I am making? He said, how? I said, you have the highest level of clearance the American government issues. There are 5 levels of clearance. He has the highest. Right now, I have the lowest. Maybe not the lowest. It's somewhere down there. He's about 3 or 4 levels ahead of me. Companies pay $50,000, $75,000 bonus to people who have the clearance he has. I tell you, knowledge is power. You have to know your worth. I did everything to encourage this young man. Actually, maybe a year older than me. He has maybe about 7 security certificates. He's high on security. He's worked security for years. Has about 8, 9 security certificates. Did Scrum, has the PSM1, has the product owner certificate. And I said, my brother, you have to make more than I'm making. He said, well, I want a job. I want a job. I said, okay, fine. But when they make you that offer, come back to me so I can help you negotiate. This man went, took an offer that seemed really good. It was $200,000. They came to me and said, Bora, I got a job. I said, how much? He said, 200K. I said, are you smoking something? Why did you not tell me this offer came? He said, at the time it looked really good. I said, it's not a good offer with what you have, the IT certificates you have. Now you know Scrum as leverage. There's no one around like you, not in the world. Go and search in America, you will not find it. If you take 200,000, I will slap you. He said, you know what, when you said I was joking, I thought, but then 4 or 5 months in the contract, he found out what other people were making. He ended up being one of the lowest paid on that contract. My brother, my sister, know your worth. and be confident about it. You must be serious. You must be consistent. You must be engaged. There are people who have paid me $3,000. Come to the product, the review sessions. They attend the meetings for 1 week, 2 weeks, and then they disappear. So the question is, why will you pay money for something you cannot stand by or stand with? Here's the answer. Most people will pay money for something they want now. Few people will pay money for something that will benefit them in 1 year. The microwave mentality, the now mentality. So you see people, there was another lady who came to me, recommended by a friend. She said, I want a job, I need a job now. And I said, my sister, you have never worked as a Scrum Master. That job will not come now. You need time, you need patience. I'm going to give you free coaching. Well, because of the referral, I'll meet with you 3, 4, 5 times and work on your resume. We met, do this, did the coaching, did the guidance. And I said, well, you can join my development team, get hands-on, you facilitate the events, give you context, but I need some money. You have to commit financially. I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have that. I said, okay, all right. 1 year later, nothing has changed. I need a job now. And I said, so what happened? Oh, I paid somebody $1,500. That's the story I hear. Oh, I paid somebody $2,000 to help with my resume, to help get a job. And the now mentality, that person will not help you. That person will not help you mature as a Scrum Master, mature with experience. They will take your money, copy and paste your resume, and tell you, bye. You must take away that now mentality from your mind. Because when difficulty sets in, you will lose that momentum, you will lose that drive, you will lose that focus. And someone will ask you, you say, oh, I was certified 3 years ago, and I did nothing with it. Because you were thinking that getting the certification was all it took, and the job should come. No one will pay you 6 figures to do nothing. All right, enough of that. Now to the training and internship. My program, my approach to learning is extremely immersive. The instruction phase is 2 weeks, 12 weeks, 2 classes per week. I will pre-record the lessons, and then I will have an actual in-class lesson. So these 3 lessons that we went through, or Agile, the Scrum theory, and the role, in my program, these 3 lessons would be about 11 hours of information more. Because for each lesson, there is a pre-recording, and then the live lesson, we break everything down. We discuss, we relate, based on your background, based on experience, based on everyone in the team, in the class. Reason, the group is small. I've never had more than 6 students per cohort, which works out well because we can discuss and we can practicalize on everyone's circumstance and situation. And then we'll actually go through live practice and review sessions. And then following that, the hands-on, the internship, 16 weeks is 4 months. 4 months is not enough for anyone to be good unless you have worked in a development environment and you are familiar with the development process. But you need at least 6 months. That is why I have the and beyond. 6 months to observe, 6 months to learn, because I understand and I have experienced that most people have other things going on. They work, they go to school, they have a family, and they are not always available. So I have to give them the opportunity to switch roles from observer to Scrum Master. Maybe you might join a meeting, but you are at work and you cannot be the Scrum Master that day. Well, someone else will be the Scrum Master, and you get to listen to the team, listen to questions, listen to interaction, and you still learn. And then I hand over all the templates I use as a Scrum Master. Everything, these slides, for example, I give them off. If you want them, let me know. You can make it your own. When it's time for you to teach your teams on Scrum theory, you have the material. Very flexible. But I want to show you the product that I actually work on. I am going to stop sharing. And actually, I might as well just open up another screen here. Oh no, here's the product. We went through the product yesterday. This is here called QSlot. Actually, let me do this. So this is the application. It's called QSlot. It is a let's log in from a new instance. It's a scheduling software like Calendly that enables a user to schedule an appointment. So this is my appointment. These are all the events that I've set up in the application. So I may want to hire you. So for this interview event, I set up the details of the event, and there is a link. And I set my availability. This availability now defines the days I will be allowing or having interviews, Monday through Friday. So when you book for an interview, you can only book within that time. And I can set here the parameters for this event. So let me allow the attendee to add a guest. Maybe you come to the interview. And here is the live page. So you can come now and schedule an interview. So I'll share this with you, and I'll say, choose the dates, get on my calendar. So I'll share this with you, and you can choose a date, Monday through Friday. Saturday should not be there. Well, Saturday is not there. So let's schedule for Friday the 16th. And we can schedule for 12 p.m. My name, phone number, email address. Or let me choose another one. Zoomalo. Okay, schedule event. Okay, so event has been scheduled. So we schedule this event. You can, with this, you can choose another time slot, but this has not been implemented. The idea of QSlot is to allow for appointments to be scheduled and for alternate appointments to be scheduled. So this is the real life application which we'll be launching in the next few weeks. And at this point, we are rounding up and cleaning up this application. And we have a team, a remote team working on this. It is fun, it is engaging, it is real. Let's see if the email has come. Let me check. One big win for me was oh, this is not the right email. All of this is Jira. Let's see. It must have gone to spam. All right. This is the confirmation booking for my interview. It's gone to spam because we are still in the working phase. The attendees are done. So we have gotten to the stage where we can actually book a meeting. Next, we have to work on the alternate meetings. In case there's a cancellation, you miss Tuesday, you automatically book for Wednesday, etc., etc. So we are making progress. But here is the fun part. This Jira is the platform that we use. This is the backlog, and we are on sprint number 15. It ends on 11 May. So on Saturday, we are going to do our sprint review. The team is going to come together and we are going to determine and see exactly how the team is doing. Remember when I said in planning, planning is not just about the team coming up with a list of what to do, but also identifying how the work will be done and who will do the work. Now you see here, every team, the team member doing the work is assigned here. Here, this is the assignee is success, and the complexity, the story point value is 3. If you have never worked with Jira, you are going to have an opportunity to work with Jira because you need to be able to say, I am familiar with Jira. And you will give you the opportunity to facilitate events and get comfortable with Jira. There are many things to do. We will look at reports, the reports of the application. One of the key things, the 2 things that get asked on interviews, burn down chart and velocity. Very important to understand velocity. Velocity is a measure of the work the team is doing. So in sprint 14, the team committed 47, meaning at the end of sprint planning, they proposed to complete 47 points worth of work. But in the end, they completed 46. In this sprint, let's see if we go to backlog. In this sprint, in progress is 48 out of 69. So they committed to 69 story points. We'll find out how well they do at the end. But you, the Scrum Master, have to be able to look at this velocity report and identify. Remember, we are in the world of asking questions. So as a Scrum Master, you don't tell, you only suggest, recommend, and you're like a mirror. You hold the mirror up and the team observes. So now we look at the Scrum, the velocity report, and this is something that we discussed as Scrum Masters when we met for coaching on Fridays. So what may be going on here? Why was the performance high here? Completed 47, 53 after committing to 48, but here we completed only 2, and here we completed only 10, here we completed 29. What is going on here? So as a Scrum Master, you are not telling. This meeting is happening, the retrospective has happened or is happening, and you provoking conversation. You might just throw the question out there, why do you think our performance was like this? What could have contributed? Because it's in that discussion that the team will come up with processes to improve the performance. So at this point, we remember the team is in Africa, West Africa, and there was connectivity issues. There were connectivity issues with cable. So the outages were widespread. The team could not do anything. So we lost essentially 6 weeks worth of work. Now this started in this development started in October. And if we've missed 6 weeks, which means that by now we should have launched by now. But now with that information, how do you as the Scrum Master provoke that conversation? Okay, now what? What does it mean that they've lost connectivity? So what? What can you do about that? So now the Scrum Master now goes to the product owner or the management to say, okay, management, these people are in Africa, they lost connectivity to cable. What can you do? What can the options be? Well, there is satellite connectivity. Can we use satellite connectivity in the future? Yes, there's a company called Starlink in the US that provides satellite connectivities all over the world. Okay, all right. Can you plan for the future to use satellites? Make sure everybody has satellite connectivity. We'll think about it. Well, right now, I'm struggling to pay the team. I don't have money for satellite connectivity. But the idea is to be aware, to have the conversation and know what tools and systems the team can use to improve. This is how these conversations happen. Then you may look at a particular sprint, say sprint 8, or let's take sprint 10. if you look into sprint 10, I think we have to go into, let's look at the burn down chart for sprint 10. The burn down chart is a chart that shows the amount of work that has been completed. At the start of the sprint was, they started with 50 story points. At the end of the sprint, they ended at this point and they had these many sprints to complete, which means that there were some stories that were issued and not completed. Then now, as Scrum Masters, we have to investigate and bring to light what is really happening. Then you can provoke that conversation. You might say here, you look here, estimate added from dash to 5, estimate added. The question is, why was the estimate added at the start of this, during the sprint? Why did they not estimate during the sprint? What could be happening? Here you have the commitment increased by 30 points. These are tools that are giving you information. You, the Scrum Master, have to use that information to ask the right questions. Why did the commitment increase? Due to scope changes, you have 80 story points to complete. How do you go from 50 to 80 story points? Where did that additional work come from? Is it work that is relevant to the sprint goal? Is it work that is a distraction? You, the Scrum Master, must know, ask the team, so that if the team is being distracted, if there's something that needs to be done, the team can make those decisions, not you. Make the decisions to do better the next sprint. And that's how little by little we improve. So it is important for you to play around with these tools, understand how to use these tools to engage the team, and then speak to it during your interview. All these stories are, most of them are defined by developers. Create prod endpoints for booking. I may have clicked on it. I may have sat there and said, oh, you know, in the creation of the story, I created it. And I say, oh, what is the title of the story? And they say, create prod for bookings. And I ask, what does CRUD stand for? These are development things I don't know. And you don't have to worry if you don't know. But you ask the developers and they'll tell you CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. I'm telling you now, and I sound smart, but I didn't know before. The developers told me. So when you facilitate these meetings, you ask them questions freely. They'll be very happy to explain to you and tell you. And in them explaining to you, they will expose issues in their discussion. So now this is the back end diagram. They are modeling the buyer diagram. You don't need to understand these things. You don't need to know these things. But what you need to know is there needs to be an acceptance criteria, which defines what it means, what is needed. So in coming up with this, you might say, okay, what's the acceptance criteria? Is this description enough? Do we have everything? Does everyone understand? They say yes. Job done as a Scrum Master, you move on. But being familiar with these tools and knowing how to navigate to move the conversation along is a skill that is necessary. But most important is the comfort level. That is important. And when you do it and you get comfortable, it doesn't feel rigid. When you're ready for a job, you're ready to apply for jobs. And seeing other people navigate, or even observing me ask questions or be stuck, or even struggle to use Jira sometimes. I don't know everything that needs to be done here, but it's okay. But I know enough to move the team along. And that's what you need as well. Do you know enough? Do you know enough such that you put Jira on your resume? But if I ask you, how do you put in an acceptance criteria in Jira? You cannot tell me. So you see, these are the differences between knowing Scrum and being ready for the job. So the certificate is not enough, but it is very, very doable. So we do this, and we use Jira primarily. I have here another application called Figma. This is the application used for design. So everything we see here, let me refresh this. Everything about the application is designed here. Remember this, the phase of design, the design coming before the implementation after the concept is done. So all these screens that you see, this public page we're clicking on, had to be designed first by a designer before it was implemented. So this is the process of developing software that we all need to be comfortable with. I had the pleasure of doing this for many, many years before I decided to be a Scrum Master. Most people don't. But does it mean you can't be a good Scrum Master? No. It doesn't mean you cannot be a good Scrum Master. You can definitely be a good Scrum Master. So I will end here and leave it up open for questions. If anyone has a question or comments, we are. You can unmute your hand, use your reaction. I think we have. Let me allow the microphone. If you have any questions, you are free to ask. We want you to be free and ready. And anything to do with Scrum, the exam, the certification, the process of learning, feel free to ask me. I'll do my best to answer. But the exam is, oh, let me throw this in. If you're not certified, you can go to scrum.org. While we are thinking for questions to ask, if you want to write a certification, you can click on the PSM certification and you can click on PSM 1. You can get practice questions here. Buy, prepare, start. Let's click on prepare. When you're ready to buy, you can prepare. They give you something here called the Scrum Open Assessment, which will help you prepare. You will see that many of these questions we have already gone. There are 30 questions. The pass mark is 85. This is just a practice assessment to gauge your understanding of Scrum. And it's very, very doable, very easy. See, the time box for a sprint planning event is straight from the Scrum guide. 8 hours for a monthly sprint. For shorter sprints, it's shorter. Developers should not be interrupted during the sprint. Remember, I talked about focus. These are conditions that foster creativity, quality, and productivity. Which of the following answers is false? Then you have to now think about what is not in the Scrum guide. The sprint backlog is fully formulated. Remember, we said the sprint backlog emerges and we are added to it, we take away from it, blah, blah, blah. So you know this one is false. Developers may work with the product owner to add or remove work if they find themselves with more or less capacity. Yes, that is true. See, as a decomposition of the selected backlog item, the sprint backlog changes and may grow as work emerges. That is true also. The product owner can help clarify or optimize the sprint when asked by the developers. That is true. So the correct answer is A, because we want the one that is false. The time box for a daily Scrum is, hello, straight from the Scrum guide, 15 minutes. But they'll treat you, see, 15 minutes for a 4-week sprint, for shorter sprints is usually shorter. Why? This is how these exams are. Because here, on question 1, the right answer is the time box for a planning event is 8 hours for a monthly sprint. For shorter sprint is usually shorter. They are playing with your mind. They know that for shorter sprint is usually shorter is in the Scrum guide for some events. So they bring it in for the sprint, but it is wrong because the time box for this daily Scrum is 15 minutes. So it's an easy exam. It's just a tricky exam. Typical size for a Scrum team, 10 or fewer. That's it. 7 plus or minus 2, 9, all of these are wrong, just to confuse you. The CEO asked developers to add a very important item. We talked about focus. So what should the developers do? They are committed to what? The sprint goal. So do they just add it to the backlog? No. C is false. Do they just add the item to the current backlog, then drop an item? No. They have to be focused towards the goal and reduce the sprint goal. The goal doesn't change. So that one is wrong. B, discuss the item with other members of the Scrum team so the Scrum team can decide what to do. Well, yeah, that sounds reasonable. You discuss, you don't disregard the CEO, you at least give some credit to the CEO. D, add the item to the current backlog and do whatever amount of work is necessary to meet the sprint goal while satisfying the CEO. Do you just have to satisfy or please the CEO? No. So these sound really, really tempting, but there is no guarantee that you must add it to the backlog. That means when you hear do whatever amount of work, that is taking you away from focus. So you see, it is not necessarily right. The team has to agree on what to do. They may do it, they may choose not to do it. It's not a must, so D cannot be correct. So this thing right here is very, very, you can go ahead and continue all the questions, but this is to encourage you that you can pass this test if you're not certified. 1 weekend of studying, practicing, you go online to Udemy and search. If you go to Udemy, for example, and just search for PSM1. See all these practices that come up? Mock exams, questions. There are some that are expensive. There are others that are even $19, $20, $44, 300 real questions. You buy one of these, you practice the questions, you pass the test. It's not that difficult. Just because of time, I would have had my own test. Okay? So you can do it. You can pass it. You can prepare for it. You can be an excellent Scrum Master. You're making a change from another career that has prepared you for growth in this industry and in this field. And if you need me, I am certainly here. If you have any questions, we shall address those questions. Otherwise, we are free to go. Oh, by the way, I wasn't sharing. Okay. Let me share my screen. I wasn't sharing. So this is the Scrum. What I was sharing was talking about was the scrum.org. And this is the exam for the Scrum guide. When does a developer become the sole owner of an item on the sprint backlog? Remember, we said the entire development team is responsible for doing the work. So never. All sprint backlog items are owned by all developers on the development team. Scrum has a role called project manager. That's straightforward. Scrum has product owner, Scrum Master, developer. The answer is false. An organization has decided to adopt. So these questions are very easy. I wasn't sharing when I went through these previous answers questions here, but particularly the one to do with the daily stand-up. The typical size of a Scrum team, the time box for a daily Scrum 15 minutes, and they trick you here with for shorter sprints is usually shorter. So you go to the scrum.org site and navigate to certification, professional Scrum Master, PSM1 certificate, and then prepare. And then you can get questions to the test. When you scroll down here, Oh, pardon me. Up here, no, this is not for prepare. This is for practice. Prepare. Scrum Open Assessment, and then you can take the assessment. But I was showing the backlog for that we use, and I went through the application, but apparently I wasn't sharing. So I'll just quickly show the application again. These are the list of booking of appointments that I have made. And this is the booking page. So these are the apps. This is the application that I'm really currently working on. And the development team is working towards releasing shortly. It works like Calendly and it's a scheduling application. And as a Scrum Master, I have Scrum Masters on the team participating in all the events and helping to bring this to life. So I'm scheduling an interview, and the interview has been scheduled. Hopefully, the email is received as well. So here's the email that just came now, 0 minutes ago. Your alternate booking has been scheduled. But all of this needs to be cleaned up. So we are making progress in developing this app. And this has happened in less than 6 months and less than $40,000. Compare that with my previous venture where I spent over $400,000 in over 7 years. So the Agile approach works, and we work together to bring this. We use this design platform called Figma to go through the design phase of the application. So this booking experience has to be designed by the designer, and then it has to be programmed or implemented by the front-end designer, and then the back-end designers will work on the database, and everything comes together. It is beautiful to see it work, and it will increase your level of confidence when you go for an interview. But this Jira is what we use. This is the story I was talking about when I was talking about the endpoints and the stories of the work that actually have to be done. So as a Scrum Master, you get familiar with this. This is the burn down chart. You actually see it. Then the velocity report, we actually see the velocity sprint to sprint. And we can have discussions about what is happening with the velocity. Very important to get this level of comfort before you go for interviews or start applying for jobs. It will make the process a lot more smooth, comfortable, and confident. So it's possible. I'll end here for now. If no questions, how do we contact you if we wanted a coaching session and also an internship? Okay, good question. Here is my LinkedIn page. Let me share with you. I'm going to send an email, a follow-up email with everyone here on the program, everyone here on this meeting. But you are welcome to collaborate with me, reach out with me on LinkedIn. Let me share my LinkedIn, and I'll share my phone number as well, so that you can reach out to me directly. My
Pardon me, I mistakenly left. Pardon me, I mistakenly left the meeting while trying to get my Facebook URL. But let me put my phone number here. Just send me a text message and we'll set up a meeting. We can talk some more. We can talk further because I want to be available to anyone who needs me. So let me put my phone number in the charge. Oh, the recording of the meeting. Yes, this recording will be shared also. Allow mic. Oh, it looks for some reason some of the microphones are not allowed. Disable. If you want to unmute your mic, you can go ahead and speak. Yes, so I know I have some numbers here, some people's numbers, but if I don't have your number, I have put my number in the chat. Let me just make sure I share my LinkedIn profile as well. So we can connect on LinkedIn and you can reach me on LinkedIn also to stay in touch. Let me copy and paste my LinkedIn URL. Here you go. That's my LinkedIn URL. You can contact me on LinkedIn. Let's be connected. I'm connected with some people already, and we're welcome. But this is my approach is very self-paced. You really get as much as you want out of the mentoring and out of if you are ready to start today. I'll tell you this. I have people who I've worked with who are certified, but who are scared to facilitate. You can take a horse to the water to drink. You can't make them drink. I know they'll be good. I know they can facilitate, but they are scared. But they want to work as a Scrum Master. So the environment is very necessary to really break that fear and break that unawareness or that question of what does it feel like to talk to developers? What does it feel like to be in a meeting with developers? We take away that fear so that when you interview, even if you say, I've worked as a manager at Walmart for 5 years, you can still confidently demonstrate that you can do the job. Okay, and I have a review on Saturday. The sprint ends. Let's go back to this Jira here. My sprint ends on Saturday. So if you want to observe the sprint review and you're really serious, let me know, and I can send you the link, the Zoom invite for Saturday's meeting. Okay, so that you can observe Saturday's review session and retrospective. It will be 2 reviews. If you look at the backlog in Jira that we will all be using, these are the backlog. In fact, you can look at the epics here. We're on sprint number 15. We'll start sprint 16 on Monday, and sprint 15. If we click here on complete sprint, I'm not completing the sprint. It will tell you these issues are open. Do you want to close the sprint? No, we'll click on cancel. To the right here, if you edit the sprint, you see the sprint goal. This is the goal that we form. The back end, the front end, the developer, they all have slightly different goals. Remember, Scrum says you must have a goal. It doesn't tell you within different functions, you cannot have sub goals. So Scrum in live scenarios is different from the Scrum guide. So we bring that context. It ends on Saturday. So if you want to observe that, you're welcome to let me know as well. We'll bring the reality to your learning. Okay? All right, Jonathan, you're interested in the sprint review. Okay. Peace, I don't have your contact. Jonathan, I'm connected with you already. So I'll reach out with you. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, Friday, I'll set up a session for you both. And if you're interested, you can join the coaching call, because I meet with all the Scrum Masters every Friday, 6 p.m. You have to be serious, every Friday, 6 p.m. So I'll set up an invite for both of you at maybe 3 or 4 or 5 p.m. You let me know. And then we can meet, we can have a slight good walkthrough, and we can prepare for Friday and Sunday. But these things are moving. The application is moving. By the end of July, I'm hoping everything will be done and ready, and we'll be live. So it will be great to be a part of this program, so that you can actually say, I have been part of this revolution. Okay, so I'm going to reach out to you all. Peace, I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. Send me a text message as well, and we can set something up for Friday and Saturday. All right. Thank you all. We'll talk soon. And I'll send the recording as well. Once the recording renders, I'll make sure that everybody has access to it. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.